All right. So do I share screen and then become full screen? Is that how I do this? Is there
Try actually, you escape, but escape. And then just hit this slideshow. There you go.
okay.
Or you can drag your little picture box.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to read a little bit excerpt from Plant Spirit Healing, A Guide to Working with Plant Consciousness by Pam Montgomery. The rose garden is in full bloom with white, red, pink, and yellow ones, all contributing to the delightful aroma permeating the air, like today. I strolled along, lightly touching the petals, letting my fingers caress the velvety folds, while my heart's rough edges soften in the embrace of Venus's flower. It is here in this tender and unguarded place the poet in me stirs. Like so many before me, as I surrender to the undeniable spell that rose engenders, inspiration rises up, kissing my heart and unleashing a pure joy, the unconditional kind, so rare among humans, yet with the rose, it's so easy. So since the beginning, rose has symbolized love, beauty, and joy. Cultivated roses originated in Persia, where nightingales would sing when they opened. In Greece, the three graces bestowed joy, beauty, and perfume scent to make them the queen of flowers. Rose water has been used for baptisms, purification of mosques and temples, with all waters and objects washed with it. Romans used rose water in their fountains. Persian women added it to a seductive potion to bring in a flower. I love that it's so long used throughout history of humans. So this is also written by Pam Montgomery. Red rose, queen of flowers, or Venus flower. Any rose will do. So just take some time to really take in the flower and look at it and let it come into you. Rose symbolizes love, beauty, and joy. Rose especially has the ability to engender self-love. She relieves grief and sexual insecurity. Rose encourages self-confidence and being content with yourself. Rose protects the heart from emotional pain and trauma. The physical attributes of rose that it eliminates heat and is very calming and cooling and soothing. Rose quiets an overactive mind, reduces inflammation, fevers, and eye irritation. Oil of rose cools hot inflammations and swellings. Rose decongests the lungs and reproductive system while soothing the nervous system. Rose calms the heart, helps with insomnia, relieves anxiety and depression, and aids in impotence. It's very astringent, which means it dries up excess liquids while toning and cleansing to the skin. Rose hips are very high in vitamin C. The spiritual attributes of the spirit of the rose heals when there's a repeated heart hurt. It mends the torn and tattered edges of the heart chakra. And rose is associated with that which is held to be sacred. Thus, the spirit of rose helps hold a sacred trust. The spirit of rose allows one to see the bigger picture. Connecting with rose. Rose is an expression of love. Bring rose into your heart and let the rough edges, can't read it, be smooth and the velvety softness of the petals. Once the softness is there, go to the apex of your heart and really feel that rose going into the apex where the four chambers meet. Here at the infinity point, let rose bring you into the state of being love. From this state, let rose bring you to the very big love of unconditional love. I think that's so beautiful. So why do I love heirloom roses? So I came from rose lovers. I have early memories of being in my grandmother's pink bathroom with pink towels and rose-scented soap, and she had a garden of roses, and she was a florist with her own flower shop. I learned roses that smelled were the best. I initially tried out the hybrid roses, but struggled to make them work successfully. They were not easy to grow. And later I found roses at nurseries around town that sold the old roses from the Antique Rose Emporium. They were climate adapted. They were ungrafted, heat tolerant, delicious to taste, delicious to smell. They were older world varieties. They have many varieties at the Rose Emporium. And so these books here are from the Rose Emporium. You're welcome to look at those, or pass them around, because there's too many varieties for anybody to look at or talk about, but I would really spend some time with those. And by the way, all these photos are from my garden. So I do a set of flowering mandala cards, and this is one of the cards that I created with my flowers, Rose and Bougainvillea mandala. Receive blessings of love for familial and global healing from the garden. Meditate on the rose and bougainvillea. We start healing the past, the present, and the future. All time is present in the mandala. Let's say the meditation. I let go of the legacy from the past. I heal others with love in the present, and I continue on with this changed legacy, knowing I am free. We are one family, being free from illusions. We heal each other with the power of the rose. So I don't know if you guys have heard of rose wrestling. Apparently in the 80s, this was a thing. So what rose wrestling means, it means you go out and find any old rose bush blooming in an isolated place, a rose you can't buy any longer, but have survived around country houses and grown up fence rows and the like. And you take cuttings and try to make roses bloom and search in old seed catalogs and look for identifications. Lots of people are interested in that now, and it seems they're going around and rustling old roses. So I got that quote from an article called "The Texas Co-op Power Rustling Roses." I'm afraid if I click on it, it'll take me out and I can't get back. Yeah. I won't do that. But I would recommend writing that down and looking it up, because it goes into great detail about how roses were wrestled. And the reason that's important is because they regained all these old varieties that were lost because they had hybridized all the roses, and they no longer had those varieties available in the stores anymore. And so throughout the 80s, a small band of Texas scouted these rural home sites, abandoned places, and cemeteries, searching for forgotten roses. And they called themselves the Texas Rose Rustlers. And the Antique Rose Emporium is really the beneficiary, because they're the one who has all of them now. I just think it's really beautiful, because down here they say, at the time, most gardeners were fussing with hybrid teas and failing miserably, achieving at most a single bloom at the short stick-like branch to control black spot and mildew. It was necessary to spray weekly during the growing season. Most of these roses were wheat growers grafted into vigorous rootstock, and they lacked fragrance along with vigor, drought tolerance, and general worthiness. So where to buy? Antique Rose Emporium. So if you look at the books that are going around, it shows all the beautiful varieties. It shows there's a catalog you can order online for $5, and they deliver. So they're not available in the stores like they used to be, but I'm hoping one day, because they just changed owners, that they will be able to do that again. Some more roses from my garden. So preparing a rose bed and watering. So old garden roses are hardy, even in poor conditions, but they will be at their lovely best if planted in a favorable situation with rich, well-drained soil. So honestly, I've slapped mine in the ground and didn't do a thing, and they were fine. But if you want them to be beautiful and spectacular, you have to feed them and mulch them and do things to them. And you know, it's gotten really hot. And so they really don't do well if you don't mulch them well and water them at least once a month, you know. But so it's like first year they don't do anything, second year they creep, and third year they leap. And so they basically jump in the ground the third year and become much bigger. And so really doing these steps of putting in fertilizer, putting in mulch, soil preparation, et cetera, and you will have much more success with your roses long term. And I actually lost a rose that I had in the corner this year that I didn't water, and I haven't lost a rose in years, but it didn't rain for 2 months. So you guys get time to read that? You want me to read it to you? Sure. So mulch and manure to me are the key to happiness, at least in the garden. Honestly, I have tried lots of fertilizers, and it isn't until I put manure on my roses, and it stinks, that the roses smell super good. I don't know why that is, but it's the love of God. It's the truth. You get much better scent. Is it true? Yeah. If you put manure on, and they sell manure at,
Manure or
any kind of manure.
so diligent.
If you really want to, sure. We did a few years ago, we did a thing on dillo dirt, and we decided that dillo dirt was fine for landscaping, but not for people's food, because it can have toxins in it, because people take in a lot of toxins, and that dillo dirt gets accumulated with that. And so you wouldn't want to put that on your vegetables and things you eat. But landscaping, it's fine. So I'm really big into companion planting and cover crops, because the best mulch is a plant. Because the plant holds moisture, the plant keeps roots in the ground, things aren't blowing away, et cetera, and so you put in cover crops and companion plants around and on top of your rows, and also mulch it, the more the better. So this is saying try to water at least once a week, but I say every 2 weeks. All right. Any questions about that? Yes. I'm one of those obsessive mulchers, so I pretty much use every single thing. And so, I just don't throw anything away. I use wood, I use grass, I use manure, I use leaves, I use anything that comes my way, because, I like us, we don't like to eat the same thing. Plants don't either. Plants want to have a lasagna, they want to have a smorgasbord of things to eat. And so if you have just the same thing you're putting down every year after year, the plant's going to not have nutrients in other areas. So yes.
I have baby blue eyes all over my garden, including under my rose bush. Should I leave them there, or should I?
Perfect. Yeah. My blue eyes have complete mind of their own, and they go everywhere. So yeah. Yeah.
I have some beautiful cows, and sometimes they do around, and I'm wondering if it's safe to directly source from the cows, or if it's better to go through like.
Well, the retailers compost it, but I used to get donkey manure straight and just pile it. And then, but I had a lot of layers, and so it wasn't straight on the plants or the ground. And so it decomposed the layers under it and worked, and I just did it in place. But you got to be a little careful that it's not hot. Like if you're putting it right next to a plant, you can burn it. You can just touch it. Is it hot? But if it's not hot, it's fine. But I would use the less hot version, not the fresh out of the, but the stuff that's been into the field for a while. He has a, go ahead.
Dry is fine. Thinking about not composting your cow manure, and horse manure is even worse. It can have a lot of weed seeds, grass seeds. If you compost it, those hopefully die. You're not spreading especially Johnson.
Well, that's the thing about layers is that if you've got lots of layers and they're breaking down over time, then the weeds aren't going to sprout. But the thing that people are more worried about lately with horse manure is the hay that can be sprayed with pesticides. And so there's been some cases recently I've heard about where people, kill their garden. So yeah, you might want to ask them where they get their hay. Or if they even use hay. But if they're, grazing, I think it'll be fine. Anything else? Okay. So chemical fertilizers can burn or even kill a plant if overused, as many of us know from having killed a favorite rose through generosity. I prefer, or in the Organic Garden Club, organic fertilizers such as fish emulsion or manure for their beneficial rejuvenation of the living organisms in the soil. Healthy soil grows healthy plants. We have to really think about what we're doing with our soil when we use chemicals, because that really kills the microbes, and microbes sequester carbon. And so when we do the chemicals of any kind, we're killing microbes. And I really think that's an important point that we need to make about using anything but organic. So I found my old book here, Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening. I think I got it from my dad. And they have a little thing in here about what to feed roses. And I thought it was pretty good. A formula developed specially for spring and summer rose feeding contains the following: 2 parts fish meal, 2 parts dried blood, 1 part cottonseed meal, and 1 part, oh, I don't want that, 1 part phosphate rock, 1 part green sand. The first ingredients supply nitrogen, and phosphate rock and green sand provide phosphorus. And you can repeat it in the fall. So I thought that was pretty good. I like how they're using the old style, stone stuff instead of the things you buy in the store. I prefer that. I still do that, mix my own up, but let's see. For maximum performance, begin feeding about 2 weeks before the last frost date of your area and continue 4 to 6 week intervals until 6 weeks before the earliest frost date. I don't feed mine that much because I think it's really hot and it doesn't rain very much. So I put just a small amount every year because we just don't have as much rainfall to really break that down. If your old roses seem to be unduly affected by black spot or powdery mildew, they're possibly planted in the wrong spot, too much shade, too little circulation, poorly drained soil, etc. Cannot stress enough how much sun roses need. They really need full sun, or at least 6 hours. And so if you don't have that and they're in the shade, they will get all kinds of diseases. They will never bloom. They will give you lots of problems. So all problems can be solved by location. Fungal diseases are from the shade. Aphids, thrips, and other insect pests really affect a healthy rosebud severely, but they can damage and disfigure the tender new buds and growth and flowers. This is particularly irritating spring when we've been without roses all winter. But you can buy ladybugs, praying mantises, and these are beneficial and good for getting rid of aphids. So. Here's another card from my deck, the Flower Mandala deck. Message from Rose: I will transform and heal your broken heart. Let me in. I can heal your most closed and suffering heart. I'm truly blessed with love. Say, I feel my heart open like a flower. I visualize soft glowing pink light around my heart. I let it open, feeling wider the warmth of the sun. I see the petals unfold. I feel the warmth inside me. I'm now one with the rose. I feel in my heart a unity with the rose. So rose training tips. So this monster here that you're looking at in my garden, I had no clue that it would become like that. It was the little tiny thing when I planted it, but I decided I needed a pathway there when it got that big. And so I built a trellis over it. So trellises really are a very spectacular thing to have. So you want to plan, if you have a trilling, one of those climbers, to have a place for it to go. And sometimes a fence isn't enough. This one, obviously, a fence was not enough. And it's, I don't know, 15 feet long across the top. It's crazy. I never thought in a million years. So be sure to remember to fit your rose to your space, leaving plenty of room for large varieties. Climbing roses need support, whether they are placed against a wall, fence, or trellis. On a trellis, this is achieved by attaching the fanned out frames to the open work. And this supports the rose and increases the flowering potential, since a rose cane draws out horizontally will bloom more heavily than one that shoots straight up. The same effect can be created by fastening the canes of a climbing rose to the links of a chain link fence, or you can staple it to a wall or privacy fence. So these ones on the right, those they're not as, crazy as the other one. They go to about, I don't know, 8 feet. So I just kind of drape them over the fence like that. And then when they're done, I push them back because it's one of those really old varieties that only bloom once a year. So it takes up so much space. And my husband's like, do we have to have these here? So honestly, I push them back over the fence, and because a lot, like the year of the snowpocalypse, they completely died all the way to the ground and didn't bloom at all that whole year. And then the following year, they came all the way back up 8 feet. It was crazy. I can't believe they did it, but roses are survivors. So pruning, has anybody struggled with that one? Tell me about it.
Now the roses are. That early, not, why is it recommended that you do around February rather than now if they do their first?
Well, according to the Rose Emporium website, it says that some roses, like the old style ones, don't actually want to be pruned. So it depends on your one. Like some of mine look terrible. I pruned 2 of them this year because they had a lot of dead stuff, and I just chopped the crap out of them, took all the dead stuff out, and just really, because they're really out of control. I just brought them way back down, and those needed it. But the ones that I just showed you in the following slide, I didn't trim those at all. In fact, they didn't have a single trim, and they bloomed all the way out to the end point. So I think it's just the style of rose. You've got to look at it, communicate with it. What's going on with you, Rose? And just say, does this rose need to be trimmed? Does it have dead stuff? Is it crossing branches? One of my roses was like literally like that. And I went, okay, you're out of control. Because you don't want all the branches doing that. You want them separated in kind of a nice shape and like a fruit tree. And you want them to have airflow, and you want them to be happy. But if they're not doing that, you got to trim them. But if they're big old long branches and they're old style and they only bloom once a year, don't trim them. And wait till they bloomed and then trim them. So any other pruning issue? No. And pruning is, I got to tell you, a little challenging because it hurts actually. I wear lots of stuff, but inevitably it stops me, and it's so painful. But you got to do it. So the good rule of thumb is to remember to remove all dead canes and clip back more than 1/3 of the remaining bush, and encouraging full foliage and heavy bloom without destroying the vigor and natural attractive form of the plant. So I pretty much said the first one, only bloom if you need to. When a rose bush, like any other healthy shrub, is cut back, it responds by putting on a spur of growth. And so that's the reason why you trim, is because if you do it too late and they send out all that stuff, or too early, a lot of times it'll send off all that fresh new growth, and it's too cold and all of it'll die off. And so this year, or in 2021, when we had the snowpocalypse, we were cold, very cold on the 21st of February, I think. So I saw it coming. I didn't trim anything. And in fact, everything died to the ground. All the roses did. In fact, I lost one or two. And so, you know, you got to kind of time that. What else? So I trim mine because they get little brown bits. They'll bloom, and then that little thing that was blooming will die. And so I'll cut that off, but maybe even just a little past it, because I think you got to go past the second leaf, third leaf, something like that, and that makes it more vigorous. So yeah, roses bloom. We did that. Rose hedges. So yeah, so this is about shaping and hedging so that it makes a good shape. So, and if left unimproved, varieties of old roses will produce attractive hips. You know, I've never gotten hips that tasted good. Has anybody gotten any? You know, I think in Texas, it's just too hot or something. My dad used to have a Rosa rugosa in New York, and it was the most delicious fruit. And I tried to grow it here, but it was just too hot, and it wouldn't. I've gotten lots of fruit, but it's not like, you know, tasty. So unless somebody knows of one, I'll go get it. So then that, you know, the same kind of thing. Okay, any questions about that? All right, so I brought some cuttings, and they're over here of my different roses. It says that fall is the best time to do cuttings here, but since it's still kind of early, I think you can still do some. The heat of summer, the roses don't grow actively. So select a pencil thick stem for your cutting. So we can cut those up if people want them. And growth that is too new has soft tissue and will wilt. And that's not a good one for cutting. So you want to cut a length that has 2 to 3 leaflets on it. And the bottom cut should be just below a bud eye. So if you look, I'm going to borrow your rose here. Is that okay? If you look on here, there's, yeah, that's a bud there. That's a place where you want to go below so that the root will come out of that bud. Where are we? Okay, so after you take your cutting, you put it in, you put some rooting hormone on it, and then you stuck it in a potting soil or sand, and you place a plastic bag over the top as a canopy, and you make sure it's well watered, and you place in a humid area in direct sunlight. High humidity can be accomplished by misting periodically during the day for 2 weeks. Your rose should root between 3 to 6 weeks, but some varieties are difficult, so be patient. Once rooted, the canopy can be removed and the light level increased, but watering must continue on a fairly consistent basis, and with the root system established, the plant can be transplanted into the yard. Has anybody rooted roses? How did that work? Did it work? And she got some? Excellent. Well, we have it, so hopefully you'll get some and you can try it. Yes, so it said, like take a plastic bag even and just put it over the top, kind of drape it. You don't want it to like be on top, but you want it to like be kind of lightly on top.
It's just to trap humidity.
Trap the humidity, yeah. Okay, and this is the last one. Rose, borage, and pansy mandala. I feel this blessing now in my heart when uniting with Rose. I feel Rose's power to transform and heal my broken heart. I open to rose, pansy, and borage. These flowers give me hope for the future. I've suffered with heavy burdens, and I can now let go of those negative experiences. My heart is cleansed, and I can start over. I am healed. There we go. That's it. Any questions? Okay. Sure. That's you.
That's me.
Okay, so stop share. We're going to go back to
Those three.
there we go. What? No.
And you can keep them one of your mandalas up.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah. I
Which
think
one
that's
did you
gonna
like?
be- I like the last one actually.
You want this one?
Yeah,
You want it
talk
to
about
be a slideshow?
You
that
guys have
one?
it up. That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. All right, here's for you.
Yes.
And I just want to mention some of these books on the table here. There's one about rose cooking, rose recipes, another rose cooking. And then people, are y'all passing around the Rosa Pouring books? Okay. And then he'll talk about his book.
Yeah. I'm gonna put this on. However, I do have an activity that I want y'all to kind of go into tonight. So before I actually get up here and talk, I'll give you my little intro. My name is Jesus Garcia. I'm a shaman. I am an earth worker from traditional rite. My family has been healing land and ceremony for some time here in Central Texas and in Mexico. And what we do here is a little bit traditional based in our garden, how we use the rose and how we supply them in our ceremonies and how we bring life into connection of what is rebirth. So tonight we're going to go through a little meditation, a little bit ancestral, and connect you with your guides too. If you don't know who your guides are, your ancestors, and any of your particular type of ancestors that have left, we use rose a lot in connection of rebirth, death, but also in the praise of life. So today, as we're kind of in this awkward period between winter, which is very cold and hard, symbolizes death and letting go, we're going into the spring season to bring new ability into what that particular manure is, right? We were talking about manure earlier and how we can compost that and create something new and really bud out what the rose ancestral spirit brings to us. And so thank you for being here, but I'm gonna pass around some of my roses that y'all can feel and touch and taste to see the magic in our gardens and where these roses came from. And some of these roses that I have here in the garden are ancestral because they belong to my grandparents, they belong to my great grandmama, and before that, lineage before that. So a lot of strong women came to really bring this medicine to you today. I'm just a guide for them. So I'm gonna pass around some of these roses so you can feel a little bit more centered and connected. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Well, there we go. Well, I'm gonna put this on now. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna come over here real quick. And so I'm gonna give a little conversation about what I do and how I do it, and why a lot of us who are earth workers or shamans or curanderos and lineage are coming out into out of the mountains and out of the woods to speak about the appreciation and the appropriation of the plants and why they're so sacred to us and why we need them today in this current world where we're trying to create and cultivate spaces that are not only healthy and healing, but they're interpersonal for us as well. We want to be a little bit more of use and of purpose. And as gardeners, we tend to find that on an everyday basis. The elements connecting back to traditions that our grandparents and our parents left before us, and also how to really express emotion from the human experience. A lot of us tend to go through life in a position where we don't know how to release emotion. We don't know how to connect back to our ancestors. And the garden is a great place for that. It's an alchemical altar that really helps us to connect to any particular type of deities or any particular type of plant spirits like we saw just above. And I wanted to keep this mandala page up because it's as simple as just getting with some flowers and hearing what they want to tell you. That's how we find true healing. A lot of the times we go into spaces we want to create. We want to make a beautiful flower bed. We want to get into roses and bring some abundance into our spaces, whether we can cultivate with the harvest. But we often forget that we're drawn to these plants for a reason. We're drawn to this forage for courage. And that's what rose symbolizes for us as well. That ancestral spirit, she's there for courage. She's there to really bring us those thorns and to find those boundaries and to say, you know what? No, this is my space. And I get to have it the way that I need to. And I get to be rooted in my power, who I am, and what my guides are telling me to do. And how we want to explain that further into the blossom of roses and the kindness of what these essences bring, what these florals bring to us. Rose and borage, to me, we plant them alongside each other, even though borage is not necessarily a Latin herb that we work with, we bring in the connection of other ancestral supporters to bring forth more of that power of the mama spirit. And borage brings that mama spirit. Borage has little thorns as well. So we're planting rose in our garden for spiritual use, spiritual connection. We want to bring in those other deities, other beautiful organisms that are connected with each other. And with borage, I love working with these two because I do essences work. And essence work is a lot about bringing the spirit into our medicine. So when we're making an altar for spiritual use, for spiritual rituals, right now, that's like kind of a thing for us, like getting into our rituals, figuring out what rituals are good for us. One of the best herbs, especially in the connection to childhood spirit, is rose. She does have that mama connection. When we smell her, when we connect with her, when we touch with it, with the clay of the essence of what she is, she brings us back kind of that covering that mama used to do. She used to protect us and tell us no matter what situation we were going through, that we were okay, we were safe, and we didn't have anywhere else to really find any outlook to how we wanted to shed those tears, how we wanted to spread that emotion. So when you're in the rose garden and you're connecting with roses, the best thing to do is to be quiet. And so a lot of the times when I invite individuals into my garden, into my spaces, the best response is to be quiet and to be in silence with the rose, because she's statuesque. She's there and she's telling them, come to mama, it's okay. And whatever needs to go through, you don't have to explain. You don't have to tell me anything. The wind heard that. The wind heard the frustrations. You coming over here in this car, getting here at a certain time just to release, just to let go, and just to be rooted into who you are with your emotion. It's okay to be human, she says. She's our expression into what drives us and really brings our root moment, who we are, a purpose in this world, in this lineage. And we get to share that with others that come into the garden with us. And so when we do meditations, when we do traditional, what we call limpias, cleanse with plants, we really do embody what that warrior spirit is, whoever it might be. Like my grandfather, he was a rose spirit. Like he had that boundary just to kind of sit and stare at someone and just say, no, like this is your energy. We don't want to deal anything with it. He was good with contracts, but he was also very feminine in that way of loving the kindness between people, loving the kindness between different communities, and how to really blossom and open up to those right people in that moment. We have all had different connections with flowers, but one that is ethereal and ancestral that I've talked about through history, time and time, is rose, the power of what rose brings us. And through different traditions, no matter what lineage you come from, someone in your life sat next to a rose. Maybe your mother had a moment with a rose. Maybe your father had a moment and trying to connect what love was and open up a little bit more. So when we connect with rose, she brings us that silence for a reason. It's in purpose. It's in connection to who we are and how we're really sending our lights. And we see this a lot in the Latin community because we tend to play with roses very fluidly, and especially in the history of the flag. That roses in the symbolism of our flag in Mexico is more about hope, because she does bring us to that connection of the root moment. Whenever I'm having any particular type of praise for myself and connecting with roses, I find myself on my knees, letting go and really surrendering to the roots, to where we came from, and the hope that is about to blossom. And just through the seasons, how they go cold and they go dormant and they close up, they show us and teach us how to be okay of letting go. In the winter, it gets really hard for us sometimes. We don't see our roses. We don't see those really beautiful, amazing blooms that we want to really embody and be. And so that winter moment of just seeing the root itself and the thorns tells us that it's time for protection. It's time to go within, and it's time to really cover ourselves and help ourselves in our own rituals, however they may be, and how they can bring abundance into the spaces from within our heart. So we're going to venture into this meditation that everybody has their rose with. And I want to give you a little bit of release moment. So we're going to take a deep breath in to the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is rooted very much with the rose. And we're going to think about something that we want to let go. But as we're thinking about something that we want to let go as we're taking this breath, the most important part is thinking about who is going to be receiving what you're letting go. Whether that be your mom, whether that be a past friend of yours, whether it be a current individual, whether it be just the spirit of air, whether it be that connection of a child's self. You need to bring them some thorns. You wanted to protect them in the moment. Maybe you want to pray. We're going to take this deep breath in. We're going to hold it as much as we can in our belly, expanding our belly. Slowly let it pass them out. As we breathe in more air, it's coming. Expanding the tummy as if it was a rose root, connected to the elements that are grounded. Beautiful spirit of the earth supporting us. Connecting us all together in this body. We are let this beautiful garden of the rose hold us, support us, and keep us true to who we are. And how we want to live in our life. We put this moment of gratitude for our heart, our mind, our body. We feel light and open and room to the magic of goodness. Here we are loved. Here we are needed. The space that you're in become your altar, become your thorns, become your sacred garden. And whoever's receiving in this moment, may they know our gratitude, our prayers, and our words. Close the ceremony by just touching the rose petal lightly and bringing it to the forehead. And then do some tapping, forehead, with the rose, however it feels beautiful and right for you. Rose has an affinity to also be astringent earth, bringing back the power that we own. Bringing back the love that we know we deserve. Bringing back the knowledge of care. Right to them. Ready? Let's go a little bit. Shake our body. A little taste of a meditation. And so, in the Latin community, especially in shamanism and Buddhism art, this lineage where get a little taste of the rose, come back and go, you can cry if you want to. I'm crying for you. What really is beautiful about this amazing botanical is that it is completely healing not only to the body internally, but to the mind, obviously in the spirit sense as well. But it also is visually and has a texture for individuals that have a racing mind. So if you have a racing mind, you have ED or tend to have a lot of different spells when it comes to emotions. If you feel too deeply, then this is the one that kind of connects it. And through history, it's been utilized in many different lineages in cooking, how to really bring forth that communal sense of people in your home, people you want to connect with, and how you want to share that plate. It's been sent as offerings to people who really need some love, some care back. It's been created as rituals for your own self in a bath, in the waters, In teas, we have healing conversations with our sisters and brothers, right? Like we spill the tea for a reason, and we want to bring it into the elements of what is called water, because in true respect, she moves that water from us. She changes and shifts things in us that only a mama can do. Only someone who went through so much trial and tribulation and difficulty can do for us. She does that every season, especially here in Texas, through that drought, through that disconnection. But then finally, it's all worth it. And the rain comes, and we let go, right? We shed, we get these blooms. And so when we're creating our own internal space, our own meditation, our own protective sacred circles, it doesn't have to be in tribe, it can be wherever you want. But I'm just here to support you and guide you through your gardens, how you're going to help others in that way. And that's what he does. And so as we're having this conversation with Rose, with a very ethereal plan, we also want to be in the respect of how to give and how to really bring forth that connection in the community. We're all the same. We're all running through, the emotions of this beautiful, amazing human experience. But it's better when you give bouquets to others and how you bring that abundance to your life as well. So wanted to open this up a little bit just to have a conversation about your emotions and who you connected and how you connected and what really brought you here. Yeah. Even though we had an amazing conversation and this is a beautiful group, something brought you here, something special, whether it be a friend brought you here and you made a decision to really find healing from within. Before we go there, I'm going to talk about a few books that have really made an impact in my life. And one real quick one, I work with children a lot and I do a lot of schooling and school teaching. And a lot of what I do here as a garden teacher, I also implement in school districts. And a lot of that is because the calling for healing is now. And the kids are our seeds. And we cannot forget that even our child within us, our child cells, also they need play. They need love. They need some rose medicine. And so one of the best ones if you're starting herbalism for the first time is the children's herbalism book by Rosemary Blackstar. She makes it very appropriate and connected to every single type of herb that's in here and how it's used in different lineages and how it's prepared and traditionally prepared in folk medicine. The individual who practices folk medicine, what drives me to keep on practicing folk medicine are the stories, are the traditions, are who passed down this knowledge by trying this dish or preparing the ceremony. And another one is La Herbalaria Mexicana. This is from Edgar Torres, and he has quite a few other alchemical and botanical sciencey books. But this one, La Mexicana Herbalaria, kind of gives us some more perspective on traditional alchemical and alchemy when it comes to botanical clay and how we really connect with elements. A lot of the healings that curanderos and shamans do are working with the elements, seeking forth the guides that move us and bring us some love and connection back before we work with these botanicals that are guides between different realms. So the elements to us are very important. And I'll just touch base real quick. We plant roses on the west side. And why? Because the west waters and the west wind bring forth this connection to rose that really opens up that breath and that essence and that scent. So we plant most of these in our west corners because we get that beautiful, amazing scent of the roses. Helps us to stop, right, and smell the roses and connect back to our feminine selves, But if anybody wants to share their experience on the little meditation, please you can stand up if you feel called to do so. And this is a portion where it can get a little bit rocky for some, so I understand. Doing shamanic healing, shamanic meditation like this can leave us a little bit nefabalada, a little bit in the headspace. So connect back with your rose and touch your rose. And, if someone wants to have a conversation on that, I'm here for it. And you can just stand up and I'll talk about a little bit about what I do as a death doula. So as a shaman, I'm also part of the clergy and I work a lot with many different organizations and different backgrounds of spiritual light, and we connect back in the garden. So no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm teaching, wherever there's a house of worship, they all go to one place, and that is always the garden. And so I found myself in this position of creating healing gardens. And I started working with a lot of clients that were part of the death side that were leading this. And in the Latin community, death is seen more as a wonderful rite, a beautiful passage, and it's also seen as a connection to bring forth life. And with that, there's so much pain, and it brings us that raw, open heart of what humans are here for. We have the power to release, we have the power to really heal others. And working with the deaf community and those who are passing and those who are going into the next realm really brings forth that magic of wanting to be here more and wanting to really send out healing in many ways. And so we do essences, and essences are taken from water, and you place just one flower on top of the water, and you pray upon it. You bring out your affirmations, you bring out what you need and what you need to clear and who that medicine is. And that becomes a blessing water from Rose, and that water becomes purifying for those who are leaving this world, for those who are already so sensitive they're not no longer part of the physical. And so when we use the Rose healing essence, we tend to really transfer some of that energetic, what we call Reiki, to that individual. So when I'm working with individuals that are leaving this earth, I always go back to this book, which is probably a must for those who are wanting to connect into the spirit side of herbalism. But Valerie Workwood, she really created a book that teaches us not only about physical connection of what plants do to us, but what they do in essence. And she worked a lot with individuals that were leaving this world too. And so she created crafted essences for particular needs. So the Rose one that's in here, it's actually for heart trauma. It's actually for those that are either facing very difficult heart issues, or they just have that one bad lover, right? That really hurt them so much that there was no life in them left. Well, the Rose essence really helps us to kind of bring this more thirst for life and how we want to connect with Rose. Rose is sweet, even though it tastes bitter, it tastes warm. It has a lot of sugar, and the way that we actually take those glyceride and that medicine out of the sweet connection of Rose is through infusions like either a tincture or a glyceride or a traditional honey, which is a miel. And miels are something that we give our children. And there's a children's beautiful, amazing cough syrup that is made with miel. And that is just a traditional honey over a nice warm pot. And we use mesquite wood. We want to bring forth that spirit of mesquite as well. And we have rose nectar too. So we can make so many different culinary medicines with rose and how they really want to work through us and connect to our spaces. But I'm going to leave this kind of an open Q&A. If anybody has any questions on what I do and how I supply, I will share one last thing. I have students, and this one was from my student Marcelo, and that was the rose ceremony. I work with a lot of students that are expressive in art. It moved this individual so much to create and illustrate what the spirit of rose was. And so when I talk to kids, they're on it. They're like, what did you see when you had this meditation? They are so elaborate. They're already there. When we grow up, we have responsibilities. That magic leaves us. And so for some time, we started producing like inner child work with roses on individuals that were kind of blocked or having some issues. And this particular individual created a spirit essence card where they captured the spirit of rose going through them and healing them and sending them throughout. And every single time, I'm not sure what y'all imagined, what you went through in your journeys today, wings appear, like this angelic connection appears. This soft light always appears right when we need that connection. And so I'll pass this one around, but I'll read their plant journey real quick. This is what they had expressed right after, is that their plant journey through rose in this meditation, they were in a dark and neutral space with no limits. A spinning spear-like beam of light with winged petals flies freely all around, spiraling in fashion between the below and the above perception of my life. This soft dance transmits an energy of cleaning, clearing, protection, and allowance for being vulnerable in expansion. And I think that's what Rose allows us. Rose allows us to really be vulnerable in that space, and to shed emotion, to let go and find that true healing within. So I want to thank you all for inviting me today and having this little sparkle of meditation in your mind. And I'll open up some questions right now. Yes.
I love how roses come down through the ages. And like, I really feel a sense of like that lineage of the rose being passed down.
Yes.
You really got a sense of that talking about the early roses because, you know, those aren't hybrid, those aren't grafted, they're actually the rose that people grew in China and in Rome. And they're the same exact rose. Heirloom roses are not shifted from that. And that's really, I think, powerful.
Yes, and I think that's something to say too, is it very is an heirloom, an antique tradition knowledge. And we have one heirloom, but they are very special because they smell different, they taste different, and they're very much old world softness, but you can also tell the lineage of it. You can also tell that there's complexities to it, and it needed to go through this route. And I do love that explanation of lineage work because this is the people's medicine. There are often times where like, oh, wow, that's a Mexican herb or that's a Greek herb. And like, oh, I've had this before, but only in this region. But Rose is universal. Like she's here to really help us, secure us, and support us. And everyone has had a connection. And if we weren't forced on Valentine's Day to really see them everywhere, you know, they come up to us whenever we really unexpected. I've had an emotion moved quite a few months ago at a parking lot, and I was just staring at these roses. They were just drift roses covered in dirt, and I was just crying and bawling because I was going through something that only that one rose could really thorn something in me to make me cry, to help to move me. There I was thanking it and just holding it and being one with it at the dollar store. So. As a teacher, we go through a lot. I'm just saying, I need a flip card for that. But it's very unexpected, and sometimes, you know, that they're there for us, and sometimes we want to seek out for that love, for that connection with Rose. But we can always do it. And here in Texas, they're everywhere. They're abundant here, and so why not use that medicine for yourself?
Anybody have a rose experience they'd like to share with?
During that meditation, today was really an act of self love. I hold a lot of space for my work. I'm a student at so, you know, and also being a parent pulls me away from doing self-care. I almost did not come to stay, but thankfully I did, and I feel like the Lord needed to remind me that. I'm very grateful for you, everyone else.
Mamas need mama medicine.
Yeah.
Mamas need mama medicine. Every time I meet a parent, it's like, you know, you need some roses. Get your rose back, get your rose tea.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
At a certain point, I think around a year ago, this whole story in itself, I sort of made a prayer to ask to see roses in places where I should be, like people I should be with, etc. And I had a number of experiences seeing that really wild time. But then recently, after a somewhat difficult housing search in Austin, I found a place to live and went out into the backyard and just a huge rose bush, right? And the stairs out. So
And you know, that's so connected with boundaries of space, creating space, the way that rose grows, it's almost like very uniform, it's bushy, or it can trellis and go wild and create a boundary space for you. And so finding a home and asking for that prayer and being one, I mean, that was the validation to feel safe, to be okay, to come home. Right? So I love working with rose thorns. Personally, like the flowers are great, but that's not what I do. I personally, I grow them with the thorns, and the thorns are exactly that medicine that I use when I need that stubborn reminder and also need that comfort at that same time. I'm a Taurus baby, so we don't want to ask for help, but we want the help. We want to get the love. Our heart is beating for it, and the thorns, the thorn medicine moves us. So when we're making a thorn essence, we really kind of connect into where do I need to be? Where is my space? And how do I really find safety into the struggles and the tribulations of the human experience? Thank you for sharing.
And you talk about the Mexican traditions, etc. What, if any, thoughts or explanations do you have for the apparition of Jesus, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and the use of the roses and thorns and December and everything? What kind of thoughts?
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I know this is a short class, but you have to go wild with it because I love theology and I love, and it's almost like this biblical sense of these roses were in history, not only in the historic books, but also they were in other books that also created these timelines. We talk about Cleopatra also trying to find Jesus in that moment. And what led her to that was a bouquet of roses that Joseph had brought over to Egypt. And we had this conversation about how this weird man, Jesus, is connected with these roses and what is he bringing? So yeah, there is an affinity on how you seek hope and love, how you seek your own religion, how you seek your own ancestors, your own deity, and how you want to connect to the life of what roses bring you. I feel like no matter whatever religion we are connecting to, there's always an affinity of life, and that's what roses bring. And yes, there's a lot of history that we can map and connect with botanical connection of how they were used back in times that we didn't know that these existed. And how beautiful is it that someone wore this crown of roses to symbolize community, to symbolize that we were all connected in some way. And so I do enjoy those conversations. That's something that, we can all connect with, because there are times that we wear those crowns, we wear those burdens, and those thorns are heavy to the mind. But if we just get into a rose bath, and we'll go this way, if we clean our legs and our feet, our tired feet with rose oil, very good, you can use your hair if you want to, but if you just use your rose oil on the body and slightly massage, that's going to release. That's going to move things that is not only spiritual but beneficial for you physically, that we're keeping and holding on to. So yeah, I thank you so much for bringing that up. I hope that kind of answered your question. Yeah. Anybody else?
I never saw the gardening, but those people are always.
And she's kind of like we go to grandma all the time when it comes to roses, and she was kind of this matriarch of not only, we think of wisdom, and that essence of, oh wow, there's so much wise connection with this plant, but there's also protection here, there's also love, and it's thriving. We don't know how, but it's thriving. It's definitely a worker for us without us knowing, and providing us safety and support. They think about it when we're away from them. So, the roses really, when we get home, they bloom for us like, whoa, I didn't see, or they kind of, it's almost intuitive, because you might be having a bad day on Monday, right? But come Tuesday, randomly you go outside, and they're all blooming at the same time for you. So they're there for you. They're communicating, they're changing the way that, your troubles are. So thank you so much.
I think it was on a Central Texas garden many years ago. But there was a lady who was using rose petals, and she was using an iron skillet, and she was macerating them, and then she used them to make little brown beads. You know how you can dry them, and then you
Like rosewood, but
yeah, because she would string them up, and so she had to have a, you know, a hole that she would put through it, but I'm just wondering if you,
I've never heard of that, but
they
we,
smell like rose, in fact, I have a rosary that has
smells-
leaves that.
wow, I've never heard
I've
of that.
actually done,
You-
yeah,
Okay.
it takes a lot of rose petals and you have to like,
Be committed.
grind them up and everything, and you have to make into balls, and then you have to put wire through them and string them. And then takes many long periods of time to dry them.
What do you put in with the petals? Do you have any kind of binder and
Just straight up.
Wow. That's the next rose project. If Larry, you had wanted something to share?
Yes, usually I take a shower after work, bed to clean off and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't even remember last time I got in the warm tub, maybe a candle, go
Yeah.
out, smelling like, sit back and meditate. I'm gonna try it. You're inspiring.
Good, thank you. Awesome. Yeah, it does wonders, even just like one bath out of the year. You know, you're constantly in the garden, you're constantly working the body. You forget this is a tool too. We need to take care of this. Anybody else? Oh, yes, Frank.
Share a little bit, so my mom's favorite flower, well, one of her favorite flowers was the rose. And it's coming up on her 10-year anniversary of that. And so she's been really present on my mind, and so my new friend here invited me to this, a while back. Yeah, so it was just kind of perfect timing for that, so. I don't know, the meditation I was kind of letting go past decade, and outgoing for me, you know, focusing on.
Thank you for sharing. And, you know, we're in that perfect timing. I call it like awkward weather timing, because it's like, well, I'm not ready to let go of the winter yet. I have things that I need to process emotionally, mentally, but I also want to spring forward. I want to be a little bit more of that cool card and just run into the dandelions, right? And so like, we're in this position to find healing into what we do need to let go. And it is like that need versus the want. You know, we can work with the wants later, you know, but the need, what we need to let go right now, needs to be planted and rooted. So we can disperse and go somewhere else and find a new connection with other gardens. Like, you know, this is for you. So I do feel like you were here at the right time. Thank you so much for sharing with them. Thank you all. This has been a very vocal crowd. So thank you so much. Normally I have a lot of criers after I do meditation. And I was like, it's okay. It's really good. So, but thank you so much for being here and really partaking into something that our family has been doing for a long time. And I didn't ask for this, but it's definitely way better than being an accountant. So, and you know, we get pulled, like some of us are secret healers, you know, no matter what we're coming through, we're being called to do things that are unimaginable. And so may that, you know, give you some purpose in life, that we all have something that we're rooting for and how we want to move inward and out as well. Thanks, friends.
There's cover crop seeds here. Other, I can make cuttings of roses. So you can take these home and root them.
Very nice.
Yes, please. Cover crop seed.